So the recent One Piece chapter showed Monkey D. Dragon forming the Revolutionary Army, and I like to think that there's some ties to Rox D. Xebec, the man who wanted to be king of the world, who went strictly against the world government, the first guy to do it. Yes, Dragon was a second, not the first guy to actually do it. Well, technically, if you go say the first guy, you can always go all the way back to Joy Boy. That's a story for another day. But throughout the story, we see how Kuma and Ivankov look at their leader Dragon and follow his footsteps. And One Piece has always highlighted loyalty really well, in my personal opinion. Like, one of my favorite loyalty moments is when the Straw Hat Pirates tell Kuma, no, we're not going to give Luffy's head up. It was just such an iconic moment because everyone knew they were going to say no, but like how they said it, it's different. When you say it in such an aggressive manner, it just shows you like that was never even a question at hand. Of course, there's also, we see loyalty when it comes to characters like, surprisingly, Crocodile, who doesn't trust anybody, and Mr. One, or the unlikely duo of Kobe and Helmeppo, and the list goes on. And that's why today we look at Rox D. Xebec, because before the world's strongest man in Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, before the monster Big Mom, Charlotte Linden, that had Roger sneaking in their territory to steal a royal poneglyph, before the flying pirate Golden Lion Shiki, who was the first man to escape Impel Down, before the strongest creature alive in Kaido, who we just saw in Wano, before characters like Captain John, the Amazon Lily Empress in Gloriosa, of course the science department in Stussy, who became cloned in a CP0 member. There's also Wang Ji in Silver Axe, who we see the pictures but we don't know much about them. We know that Rocky Port incident has to do with Wang Ji, but that's all we know, and more and more. But who was Rock's main dude? Who was Rox's Roronoa? We've seen how much Roronoa, absolutely nothing, changed One Piece story. That was Luffy's guy after that, and you couldn't say anything after that. So who was, of course, his Roronoa? And that moment also had Sanji doing some amazing things too. So who was Rox's Zoro and Sanji? Like, does he even have a Sanji, let alone a Zoro? It makes you really wonder how an event occurred that changed the trajectory of Rox D. Xebec. I think an event occurred that changed the trajectory of Rox D. Xebec and aligned his goals and trying to be king of the world, which you will find out at the end. So continue watching this video because I'm about to drop some bombs. You don't want to miss a damn thing, guys. Now, a lot of people are not talking about it, but chapter 1096, yes, it was like a sneak preview of the God Valley incident, and we got like a little glimpse of here and there with all the parties showing up to the island to, of course, participate in combat. I have to talk about how Rox D. Xebec did have some lines in this chapter, and for the guy we don't even know how he looks, every line matters. It's like characters' statements matter more when you don't know how they look. Like Green Bull, when I didn't know how he looked, I would look at his statements, like him talking about fasting and whatnot. Same thing for Rox, and this line he says is, "Give up, you lousy Marines, follow my lead, crew." Now you have to understand, this is not just no regular crew. Every one of his crewmates are legitimate captains who are just all coming together for one big score. Like, these guys are not guys who rose up the ranks with, of course, Rox. So the fact that he said, follow my lead crew, and the fact he's able to do that, lead a bunch of strong-headed minds like this, like Whitebeard after told Oda now he doesn't want any more Conqueror Saki users because of what he saw during the Rox days, that just shows you how impactful Rox is as a character. And we see the reply to this statement by Rox. Whitebeard tells him right away, don't rush ahead. And pretty much that kind of remind me of like Luffy and Zoro in a sense, or like anytime Luffy rushes ahead, like someone always in the Straw Hat Pirates tells him to relax. And then he says this though, which no Straw Hat Pirate says this: "Since when did I let an idiot like you give me orders?" Now that's crazy, because that means Whitebeard is probably the most calm character on the Rox Pirates. And even Stussy replies, not you too, because if Whitebeard's saying that, that says a lot, because we all know that means that this crew was not cohesive at all. The fact that Whitebeard said these statements, so definitely made me look at Rox a little different. Who was his vice captain before these guys who of course were on the Rox Pirate crew? Of course, we get a little more context when it comes to this chapter, of course, when Roger says, finally, do you have any idea how I felt this past year? So we know Roger and Rox had some sort of relationship that was very interesting, and it looks like Roger is actually going after Rox. It looks like he's going after Rox, and it reminds me of how Garp, like how when he came to God Valley, he's like, don't tell me, just tell me where Goldie Roger is. All he cares about is finding Roger. So the relationship of Garp always trying to find Roger, it looks like Roger, who never tried to find Whitebeard, never tried to find Garp, his biggest rivals before we knew who even know where Rocks was. He tries to find Rocks, the most formidable foe to Roger. That definitely makes me think. And the reason why I'm talking about loyalty and like pretty much your ride or die in a sense, you gotta look at characters like Goldie Roger. Goldie Roger had Silver's Rayleigh and Scarborough Gabon during the God Valley incident. People didn't even know that Gabon was there in the God Valley incident, but no, they've been with him for so long. And you see Gabon telling him, yo, I don't call dibs just because you're the captain. And of course you see Rayleigh, and he's just right side by side with Roger. And we seen it, of course, when they became Pirate King, and the tears they had for their captain. I definitely gotta say, and we all know that Roger and Gabon are his best guys. Gabon was literally fighting Kozuki Yoden, a Conqueror's Haki coding user who scarred Kaido. That says a lot. And then of course we have Rayleigh, who is the Dark King, the vice captain. Prime Rayleigh is disgustingly powerful because old Rayleigh was fighting a Admiral at stalemate. Like, that's insane, guys. Even Blackbeard, who knew the strength of Prime Rayleigh, like Rayleigh's like, yo, no, I'm gonna lose to Blackbeard. Blackbeard doesn't even know how much power fell off from Rayleigh. He just knows the Prime Rayleigh, and he's like, I'm not even gonna risk fighting this guy. Says a lot about Roger's top guys. Even recently with Monkey D. Garp. Monkey D. Garp, the whole memes have been starting ever since that epic cover story where we saw Bogard. Bogard was a swordman who cut all those bullets and cut all the gun of Kobe during the early of the story, and we always thought since then that Bogard would be a legitimate fighter. But you know what's funny, we never seen him again. We saw him in post Eddie's lobby, but that was it. We never saw him post time skip. And even when Garp lost to the Blackbeard Pirates, Garp was fighting San Juan Wolf, Avalo Pizarro, Vasco Shot. He was fighting Shiryu the Rain and Aokiji. Like, he's fighting half the Blackbeard Pirates and his former number one pupil, and he doesn't have Bogard. He has Prince Gurus, Kobe, and Almepo. But I'm thinking, run up to your vice captain. But then in the God Valley incident, Oda shows side by side Bogard there. Definitely makes you look like, okay, at least even Garp, who in his dire moment he didn't have it, but in one of his major moments that made him a hero, he did have his vice captain, his right hand. And the live action definitely shows that as well and highlights that as well. And you can even look at the Rox's crew, like his crew, the people that followed him. They even got legitimate strong fighters right after him. If you think about Whitebeard, he had Kozuki Yoden, who we looked at as a brother, who had a Conqueror's Haki and who hired Kaido. And he arguably could have beat Kaido, the two sword style user of Samurai from Wano, who was a legitimate fighter. He also had Marco. Marco was the first division commander, and he was a mythical Zoan Phoenix who was going up against admirals during Marine Forward War. During the time skip, he went up against a man who would become Yonko and Blackbeard, who had the Gurgur no Mi and the Yami Yami no Mi, arguably the strongest Logi and strongest Primitia, if you think about it. And now we know probably the strongest zone belongs to Luffy, so that's pretty interesting. Then, of course, you can even look at Marco coming all the way to Wano and going up against Big Mom, a Yonko, and then right after that going up against King and Queen. Like, Sanji and Zoro went ham to defeat King and Queen, and Marco was fighting him at the same time. That shows you that Marco ain't nothing to play with. Even the Gorosei said it, yo. After Whitebeard fell, Marco was one of the top candidates, of course, to stop Blackbeard. Yo, the respect that Marco gets in the story is insane, and people don't even realize it. Then, of course, we have Big Mom, and Big Mom, she doesn't really have two guys like Roger, like Whitebeard, but she does have one solid dude that is blood related to her second son, Katakuri. The reason why Katakuri is so hype is because of the tools he has. He's a Conqueror's Haki user. Not Conqueror's Haki coded, don't get him mistaken, but he has Conqueror's Haki. That's insane when you're following a captain. Like, the only other characters we know that have that follow a captain is like Rayleigh and Zoro, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Then, of course, we also know that he's a Future Sight user. And honestly, the only other guys we've known that use Future Sight are Red Hair Shanks, the Yonko, Monkey D. Luffy, the Yonko, and Kaido, the former Yonko. That's the only guys we know who use Future Sight. Obviously, we can assume that other characters know it, but we haven't seen it yet. And Katakuri was known for his Future Sight being really well, of course. Then, of course, the final thing I want to say is he also brought his Delver ability to his highest level when it comes to Awaken. So he's Awaken, and he's an Observation Haki advanced user, and he could there's hints of him having advanced armor Haki, but that's another day, a video for another day. and he's a Kankasaki user. Yeah, Big Mom definitely had a solid son that had her back. And then you look at Kaido. Even Kaido had a monster under him as well when it comes to King and Queen. But I'm gonna highlight King more so because King was a special Lunarian race, and the Seraphims were literally built after King. And it took Zoro, King of Hell, Advanced Conqueror's Haki to defeat him. And you know what's funny? If he had that flame on, Zoro's Advanced Conqueror's Haki attacks weren't really doing that much damage. I think obviously the manga is trying to make you assume that Zoro was getting strong, attacks were getting stronger, and at the end he defeated him. It was flame off, but it was looking like, how to say this, King was so worried about Zoro's attacks that he didn't even want to risk flame on, that he was just trying to use the speed advantage. That's my guess, but I do gotta say this, King at the end of the day is an ancient Zoan, and he's a special Lunarian race. That's the toughest of tough. Like, attacks that Zoro was doing to Kaido that was cutting him in like his scales in his big dragon form weren't even damaging King when he was using his Lunarian specialties. That says a lot to me personally, how durable King is as a character. I know people like to bring up Green Bull and whatnot, but Green Bull's an admiral and he was perfectly healthy. King was definitely damaged after the Zoro fight. I'm gonna cut him some slack for that scene, of course. And then of course you even have Shanks. Shanks was literally, when he was talked about as the newest Yonko 6 years ago, he became a Yonko. They said that Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, and Yasop were legitimate fighters. Like, that's the only Yonko that highlighted his top 3 commanders and said that his entire crew was well balanced. So we already know that Shanks has a monster crew around him. But Ben Beckman, I'm telling you guys right now, Ben Beckman is different. When Shanks said, let's claim the One Piece, he didn't say it to Lucky Roo, he didn't say it to Yasop, he said it to Ben Beckman, who Oda said was the smartest character after, I think, 100 chapters, was the smartest character shown so far. That says a lot about his intelligence, but also the fact that he also took Useless Kid, the man worth 3 billion berries arm. That's a feat that will live to the end of times, yo. He took Useless Kid's arm. I know Useless Kid's, everyone memes on him and whatnot, but still, I gotta give respect to respect is due. That makes him a savage. And the fact that he froze Admiral Kizaru, yeah, Kizaru fought, like, attacked Luffy right away after like about 2 seconds, but the fact that he froze up and said, whoa, Ben Beckman, says a lot about his reputation in the One Piece story. And then of course we have Blackbeard, and Blackbeard has probably one of the most underrated lineup of characters. A bunch of level 6 prisoners. Like, you have to give respect to respect is due. The most ferocious criminals are under Blackbeard's crew, and the man who is keeping them in check is Shiryu the Rain with his invisible dove fruit added onto that as a legendary swordsman as well. And then of course we also have the former admiral in Aokiji. You gotta admit, guys, Blackbeard has some dogs with him. Aokiji is a former admiral with a powerful Logia fruit. And there's a reason why the Yonko level character, in my personal opinion, I think Garp is Yonko level, was attacked by only 2 guys, Shiryu the Rain and Aokiji. They're the only ones who actually did damage to Garp, because they are legitimate fighters. And I can even talk about the new Yonko Luffy. Yes, Gear 5th Luffy has been taking a storm in the One Piece story, but his guys are legitimate. When it comes to Rono Zoro with Advanced Conqueror's Haki, who scarred Kaido with that Ashura move, and King of Hell was able to defeat the Special Lunarian Race King, you gotta give respect to respect is due. Zoro is a dog. And even add Sanji into that too, with the fact that he was so fast with his Germa body that Queen couldn't even see him. He was literally invisible to Queen. Plus the blue flames. He added his extra exoskeleton with his Haki to combine that with his speed, and he sent Queen flying with that an attack. Obviously, recently Sanji did get humbled by Saturn, which was a very, like, it's a regular Sanji moment if you've been following him post time skip. But still, Sanji is still a legitimate fighter. Zoro and Sanji have done their thing after Wano, and you gotta give respect where respect is due. And even the final Yonko I want to talk about is Buggy. Yes, Buggy is weak. Yes, he is not powerful. Yes, he has no, how to say this, like, if he's fighting someone, he has literally 0 chance of winning, in my personal opinion. He still was a part of the Pirate King's crew. He still was under Goldie, Rogers, Silvers, Rayleigh, and Scopper Gabon, while also being around Kuzuki Oden and the future Yonko and Shanks, his ally. And his vice captain was literally fighting Shanks to, like, with both arms at an equal playing field. I'm talking about the world's greatest swordsman, who they said has a higher swordsman skill than Shanks. That's a lot of respect for Miyok right here. His bounty is literally higher than 2 Yonkos in Luffy and Buggy, his own captain. Yeah, I'm talking about the Black Blade user who, let's be honest here, the greatest swordsman. When there's characters like Kuzuki Oden, when there's characters like Roger who uses a sword, Rayleigh uses a sword, Shanks, that says a lot. And now Rono Zoro trying to surpass him, the guy who's about to be the vice captain of the future Pirate King. Miyuki's place in the One Piece fold has looks legitimized and solidified as well. So then it finally hit me. You're thinking, why am I mentioning all these duos and trios and these 2 guys or 1 guys who are under legitimate fighters? And I got inspired because of Monkey D. Dragon. Well, it finally hit me. Rock's vice captain had to go against Rock's dream. There's only one reason why Rock's vice captain isn't part of the Rock's pirate crew, and I think Rock is a man who would get a monster to be under him. It's been shown throughout the story that monsters attract monsters, but I think him trying to be king of the world, him trying to take out Imu, and him trying to do it in a way that he thought was justified, I genuinely believe that Rock's probably killed him before he recruited all these top pirate captains. Yes, I think he killed his best friend. And I think it's possibly, hey, listen, it could have been during the God Valley incident. It could have been a Doflamingo Corazon moment, but and I think the vice captain could have been a D member. You know how Corazon and Doflamingo were blood-related brothers that were celestial dragons, and former celestial dragons, and then of course Doflamingo had to kill him. I think it could have been a similar situation with Rocks, yo. I think it could have been 2 Willow D members, and he was trying to stop Rocks and Xebec, and then of course they had to go against each other, and I think God Valley would be the perfect place to do it. I think before the recruiting the top pirate captains would make more sense, but if it happens during God Valley, us as fans have popcorns and we're just enjoying this entertainment. And then I also want to talk about a very interesting moment here too, is when Rock says to Roger, "Don't get in my way," when Roger's trying to stop him. And it just makes me think, he was going against Saturn, Figurland Garling, Celestial Dragons, who stole his crown jewel. He didn't even pick a fight with him first. And a prime Garp, who didn't even care about Rocks. If you think about it, he thought the Celestial Dragons deserved the wrath of the Rocks pirates. He only came because of Roger. And you think about it, I think the same thing happened when it comes to Roger. I think the reason why I had to say this, his vice captain spot was null and void. I think Roger, maybe what he wanted to be his vice captain, that Willow D member, maybe he wanted it to be Roger in a sense. And if that would be the case, that would mean that Roger actually killed his best friend in Rocks, and that would make the story even more hyper. Though that's a reach, I do think that Roger did decline joining the Rocks Pirates, because the same way he declined Shiki when Shiki was talking about, let's go and become my right hand man, and he says, I don't want to conquer anything. Remember, Roger said that. I think Rocks, if he accepted resumes and applications from Whitebeard, Shiki, Big Mom, he definitely tried to get Goldie Roger, the GOAT at the time, to join his crew. And I think we're definitely going to see a lot of epic scenes soon, very, very soon. It's almost chapter 1100, guys. Like, God Valley Incidents are going to be shown soon, guys. I don't think I'm not right now, but 50 chapters, 100 chapters, maybe an Elbaf, I'm not too sure, but it's going to be shown and it's going to be hyped. And as fans of One Piece, we're going to thoroughly enjoy it.